Welcome back, Swing Players. My call sign is BatMando, and I've been playing since 2015. And welcome to our channel. So, in which case, before we get started, though, if you are new to our whole entire channel and everything else, we want to make certain that if you are a brand new player, that we can help you out with all the topics that we can. But we do know that I'm going to be saying a whole bunch of stuff that you're going to be like, "What is he talking about? Is he speaking Greek? Is he speaking in a different language?" So in which case, this is where I'm going to go ahead and get out of this. Ooh, hold on a second. Get out of this screen for a second. You need to go ahead and bookmark these three sites. So, and I already pulled them up for you. And the first one that I would recommend is if you are confused about what I'm talking about, I use a term and you're just like, I don't know what that is. Well, then you come on over here and you go ahead and type it in. Now, if there's something that I know that I'm talking about that's not going to be here, I'm going to go ahead and explain it. So, like for instance, if I talk about Concordia face-off, and you can go ahead and come on over here. Oh, it should popped up by now. Okay, let's find out. Concordia face-off. So, and guess what? Here it is. You're going to see all the different places that you can find it. Click on Fang Fighter, and you come down here. It talks about its ship ability, and that's what this website is most useful for. If you have questions about rules of the game, then this is where you go. So you have the rules reference right here, and sometimes we're going to be talking about scenarios. So in which case, click right there. You'll find out which one of the four scenarios that we're dealing with, but I'm not going to be talking about scenarios during this game. We may talk about some rules, but during this video, I mean. So, and then the third and final site that you need to go ahead and have is the forum, because let's go ahead and be honest and say that you've read the rules reference and you're still a little bit hazy on something that's mentioned here in the book. You've read it and it still does make sense. Go ahead and search through the forum, see if somebody else was having difficulty with it. But because as you can see, it's talking about, different titles for different ships. Is it a crew or gunner? All this other stuff. Because here's the thing. We're all trying to figure out what FFG or AMG is meaning by the words that they throw into their text every once in a while, and sometimes it just needs further explanation. So don't be embarrassed. Just go on over there, post your stuff to the forum, and you'll get an answer pretty quick. So let's go ahead and jump back over here to our video content, and today we are talking about attacks. We want you to hit them with your best shot. Sorry, terrible pun, had to do it. And in which case, these are the topics. So target assessment, we're looking for our biggest threat, and we're also looking at, can we focus fire? And focus fire is essentially where you take all of your ships, aim, not specifically aim at a ship, but like you just happen to see that there is a ship in the arcs of all of your ships on the field. You go ahead and every single one of your ship goes ahead and lays fire into that one ship, and that's what is that's what is regarded as focus fire. We're also trying to make certain that you get more bang for your buck, and just basically tell you, or not tell you, but show you a way of how you weigh out your options while you are in the middle of the game. So we're going to talk a little bit about dice, because, it's a dice game. Sometimes it goes for you, sometimes it goes against you, and you have no control over that. So this is a way to kind of look at that. So in which case, let's go ahead and jump on in and have some assumptions for the pictures that you're about to see, because I set up something so that you could actually see all the stuff. So let's assume that all the ships that we are having here are full health. Let's also assume that all their ordnance, as in all their torpedoes, all their missiles, are full. So dice is always going to be a variant. I may talk about it briefly. I may say, hey, in a best case scenario, this is what's going to happen. In a worst case scenario, this is going to happen. So in which case, let's go ahead and jump on in here. Now, I only have 5 ships in this picture, and yes, the rebels are outnumbered. I mean, aren't they always? So in which case, we got the scum with 3 ships there. I've gone ahead and posted up here their different abilities and everything else. If you are, again, use the website if you have no idea what plasma torpedoes are, but I will be like showing that later, So in which case, we also have Dutch versus, or Dutch with wedge, and this is Battle of Yavin wedge, which is not the typical wedge that you find in your squadron builders. So in which case, These are all the things that they have. You can see that I put a dorsal turret on Dutch, and that means that he has a second firing arc. It could be to the side, it could be to the back, or you could just go ahead and put it with its primary arc as well. But if you're going to have a turret, you may as well turn it to the side, because you never know who's going to try to sneak in behind you. So, or that's just my opinion. So anyway, you have all the list comparison here. Now, it is not a fair scenario. We weren't trying to deal with fair. Sometimes the game is not fair, and that's just the truth of it. Sometimes you are up against a list that has more ships than yours. Sometimes you have a list that you go up against where the ships that you are facing are far faster than you are, or far more maneuverable than you are. So in which case, the game is what it is. And, you know, we don't want to try to discourage anybody, but let's just be factual and say that you're never really truly going to get, say, a equal footing with both of the squadrons that are on the table. So you can come close, but it's never going to be truly equal. So the thing is, building a list, which is going to be a whole separate video, build a list that matches your strengths and your flying. And for the new players, you're just like, well, I don't know what my strengths or my flying style is. Well, this is where you have to just kind of experiment a little bit, see what works, see what doesn't work, and there you have it. So now let's go ahead and jump on into this. So decisions. I mean, you can see right here, I have laid out a whole bunch of different range rulers just so that you can see what is going on. Now, you can't do this during a tournament, but you can do this during casual play, or even set up stuff for yourself at home on a mat so that you can figure out what is going on here. Okay, so as you can see, a lot of different range rulers here. I prefer the acrylic ones if you're a new player and you're like, where do I get those? Sometimes you can find them on Etsy, or sometimes you know a guy who works at a local game store, and you know, you pay him to go ahead and make these, and I very much appreciate it. So thank you. Anyway, so in which case, let's start looking at which ships, or which ship should the rebels hit, because they got three options here. So actually, I'm going to say they only have two options, because Old T over here, Old Tayrock, is out of both of their arcs. He's over here to the side, just doing what Old T does, sneaking up behind. Now, I will tell you that you were just probably looking at the primary arc. Yes, what you can't see in this picture very well is that there is a turret, and the turret is off to the side here. And yes, the turret has him at range 1 in arc. That's why I put that piece there. So in which case, you have a turret arc that could hit Old T, but Wedge is definitely not going to be able to hit Old T, and Old T is not going to be able to hit Wedge, because this particular range ruler is underneath these two, and it's going right in front of the base of Wedge here. So Old T only has one target, and that is Dutch. And the only ship that both Wedge and Dutch have in common that is feasible, okay, so they can both hit Lima Kai over here. Can they both hit the Feng, as in Fen Rao? Yes, but let's take a look at the risk here, though. So you got Wedge, who's doing a range 3, and so that means that, first off, Fen Rao already has 3 defense dice to begin with. Now you're going to go ahead and give him range 3, which means, hey, guess what? Now he's rolling 4 defense dice. But you forgot about the obstacle there that is clearly in the line of the ability for Wedge to fire at Fen, and in which case, now you're talking about 5 defense dice. And Wedge is only going to be rolling 3, because his target lock for his proton torpedoes is currently sitting on Lima right here. So now, this is what we kind of look at from the Rebels perspective. Now let's go ahead and flip it so that we look at it from the Scum perspective. And hey, guess what? The target that all 3 of them have in common is going to be Dutch. And we'll get into more detail about that here in a second. Now, if you're going to ask me personally, which one do I think is the bigger threat? Wedge is the bigger threat. Wedge has an ability that is just flat out wicked. Let's go ahead and go back to that real quick. So while Wedge performs a primary attack, if another friendly ship is in the defender's firing arc, that defender rolls 1 fewer defense die. So in which case, if you wanted to go ahead and do a primary attack on Fenn, he would be able to get Fenn down to 4 defense dice, but you're still talking about 3 attack dice versus 4 defense dice. Weigh your options. Maybe he's rolling cold, maybe he's rolling hot, but I would tell you that looking at Wedge's options, which we will in a little bit on a different slide, I don't think this is his best shot. So, in which case, you know, if you're asking me who's the biggest threat on the field right now of the Rebels, that is Wedge. If you're asking me who's the biggest threat on the field for Scum, that's Fenn. So now, in which case, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing because you need to observe some stuff. First off, which tokens do the ships have? Because you got focus tokens over here, you got focus token here, focus token here. You also have a stress as well. That's not going to affect anything currently, but it could in certain situations. 2 target locks are here on Lima. And if you're asking how does that happen, because like Wedge has a focus here, how is he able to get a target lock? Well, if you didn't pay attention to Dutch earlier, let's go ahead and roll back real quick. After you perform the target lock action, you may choose one friendly ship at range 1 to 3. That ship may acquire a lock on the object you locked, ignoring any range restrictions. So now, as you would have it here, you see that Dutch's action was already to go ahead and have this locked. Let's assume that at the beginning of this, that Dutch's turret was already to the side, and the action that he did for this particular round is locking Lima. So we have him locked. He passes another lock, or passes the ability to lock on over to Wedge, and Wedge has Lima locked. So you got 2 locks on the same ship. So this could be good, this could be bad. We'll find out. Now, in which case, let's go ahead and talk about we've talked about the focus, we've talked about blocks, we talked about stress. Nobody has any evades out here, so we don't have to worry about that, and nobody's jammed or any other tokens that you would see on there. So in which case, always look for the different tokens out there, because you have pilots that actually can get more abilities to shoot at someone if that ship is stressed. That's why I was pointing it out on Fenn Rau here. So now, where are the arcs pointed? Because the majority of us are always looking at the primary arc out the front, but you have Dutch over here with a turret off to the side. Now, this is not in the loadout for Dutch right now, but imagine, if you would, that Dutch has a veteran turret gunner. So after Dutch does a shot out the front, then the veteran turret gunner can shoot with that turret off to the side, so they're able to do 2 shots in the same round. That is not the case in this, but that is something to consider when you are loading out your ships here, so or building your list. Now, let's go ahead and see what we got on the next thing here. Range details. Okay, so these are things I wanted to point out before we actually got into the shots. So in which case, like range 1 bonuses, you're going to get an extra die. So in which case, old T over here, the Fang normally has 3 attack dice. Range 1's going to give him 4. So now the next thing I want to bring up is Fenn, also range 1, but Fenn has that ability where he gets to add an additional attack die. So that means he's going to be rolling 5 attack die at range 1. So there's the Concordia face-off here. So if Dutch made the decision to go ahead and shoot at Fenn, well, again, Fenn has that other ability, or the same ability, because not only does the range 1 bonus, or Fenn's range 1 bonus apply to attack, it also applies to defense. So the Fang normally goes ahead and rolls 3 defense. Fenn's going to be rolling 4 when you're attacking him at range 1. And with the Concordia face-off, that basically states that one of those results is going to automatically turn into an evade. It doesn't sound fair, and that's why a whole bunch of people don't like facing Fenn. A whole bunch of people like to fly Fenn, but not face him. So in which case, there's that. Now, you got the range 2 situation here. Currently, the turrets can only be shot at range 1 to 2. And the turrets I'm talking about are dorsal turret and ion cannon turret. They only have a range 1 to 2. So if it's beyond range 1 to 2, then you can't use that turret, even though that person could be in your side arc or rear arc or wherever the case may be. So now, with the missiles and the torpedoes, you want to make certain that you are firing where the missiles can actually go, because some missiles are just 2 to 3. Cluster missiles are range 1 to 2. So in which case, as it is, Dutch here could do a range 2 cluster missile attack at Lima because of the target lock already there. And if you go ahead and read on here, you could do a bonus attack at a different target, range 0 to 1 of Lima. But this is the reason I put this down here. You see that this is a range 1 ruler here. Finn is out of that range. If Finn was in that range, you definitely would be able to do a first attack here at Lima, then a second attack, probably without mods, but still, it's worth it. So mods being your focus, your target locks for attacks. There's other mods as well, but we'll get to that later. So now, which case, look at plasma torpedoes here. This is on Lima. Lima actually has Dutch locked at range 2. So in which case, there it is. So we got all sorts of stuff going on here. And then we get into the whole range 3 extra defense die. Now, here's the cool thing. Yes, normally with a primary attack, you get the extra defense die. However, if the attack is coming from a special weapon and it has this missile symbol right here, not happening. You do not get the range 3 bonus. So over here, you got Wedge, who's going to be possibly shooting at or shooting his proton torpedoes on over here at Lima. And what's going to happen is that, like, you're going to think, oh, hey, guess what? Range 3, Y-Wing normally only has 1 agility, as in 1 defense. Hey, guess what? Maybe I get a second one. Nope. A range 3 torpedo or missile is going to negate that extra defensive die, and there you are with your same normal agility. So there it is. Okay, so that's everything with the range details, and I think we're about to get in. Oh, road. Who's going to be the first player in this instance? So I flipped a coin, and we're just going to go ahead and say that it's going to be a rebel. So normally you do the 3 attack dice against the 3 attack dice, but I just decided to flip a coin this time. So you don't do that in tournaments. I'm just doing it for the video. So please do not go into a game store saying, I thought we just flipped a coin. Nope. Okay, so now, which case, even though Rebel won Road, it still starts with the highest initiative, and Fenn Rau is a 6, and he is the highest initiative on the field. So even though Road went to the Rebels, and you're thinking, well, Wedge shoots first. Nope. So Fenn Rau is the one who's going to be shooting first because he's a 6. So now, Fenn has a lot of different options. He's got the option to do that range 1 attack into Dutch. He's going to get 5 attack dice. It's sick. I know. So again, if you're trying to figure out how that happened, just read right here and you got it. So in addition to range 1, he also gets to roll another 1. So yeah, it's 5. So 1 defense dice for Dutch right here. And you got fearless, which basically means that you're going to be changing any 1 result to a hit. So like, let's say that you have a blank there. You can't use a focus on a blank. So in which case you go ahead and take that blank, turn it into a hit because you're fearless. You are range 1 and you are looking into each other's primary arcs right there. Done. So in which case, you know that with this focus, with fearless and range 1, Dutch is going to not have a great day. So I said I was going to talk about best case scenarios or best case results and worst case results. Okay, well, here they are. So let's say that Fenn Rau gets extremely lucky and he gets paint on all of his dice. So even if he rolled 1 blank, he's going to do fearless and that's going to become a hit. So let's say he gets all paint, and let's also say that Dutch rolls 1 evade. Let's say that Dutch is full health, which means 2 shields and 6 hull. Hey, guess what? Half of that is gone. The shields are gone, 2 hull are gone, and that's just in 1 shot. So Fenn Rau is sick. Fenn Rau is mean. And this is why you try not to be range 1 of Fenn Rau, especially in his front arc. So he's a mean machine. So he's mean to play against, but he's also fun to play. Well, if you're playing him, you're seeing him do all sorts of crazy stuff. Um, unless your dice are cold, and then in which case Finn's not as, mean as he can be. So now, so in which case, let's talk about Fenn's second option, which is going to be a range 3 attack. And this would, I didn't have another range ruler to put this here. So in which case, let's imagine a line that goes all the way over here. And yes, he is actually in arc on the back end, and you could shoot at Wedge. Wedge, you would only be rolling 3 attack die at that point in time, because that is Fenn's primary. And then because Wedge is at a 3 or range 3 distance, and this is not a missile attack, this is just a primary or ordnance attack, this is just a primary attack, he's going to get that range 3 bonus. So instead of rolling 2 defense die, he's actually rolling 3 defense die, and then it's just 3 on 3. Well, what do you think are the odds? I mean, that's pretty even Steven at that point in time. You really don't have an advantage. So the last thing I would also tell you to look out for in this option is, can other friendly ships, in this case scum, can other scum ships hit the same target and do the focus fire thing? So in which case, as you can see that I have set this up, all 3 scum ships can hit Dutch. So let's go ahead and say that we did the thing. Fenn rolled 5 hits or crits, and then let's say that Dutch got lucky and rolled 1 evade, still at half health at this point in time. So Dutch only has 4 health left. Okay, that's what we're going to say in this particular situation. So now we go ahead and go back to the rebels. I kind of just covered all of this. So, but let's go ahead and, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. So in which case, Dutch's defense is pretty, this is not looking good for Dutch, period, because one, we got Fenn Rao at range 1. He's already taken off 4. Okay, the 2 shields, the 2 hold, they're gone. Then let's go ahead and say that we follow it up with Lima over here. And let's say that Lima goes ahead and does the plasma torpedoes. Now, plasma torpedoes would have been a lot more helpful if, say Dutch had actually kept some of the shields, but no. So no shields left. So, but it's better to roll that 3 attack die with the plasma torpedoes than a 2 attack die, which is Lima's natural or normal primary attack. So in which case, Lima with the plasma torpedoes, let's say best case scenario for this mem, hey, guess what? All dice are being hot at this point in time. Lima rolls 3 hits or crits, whatever the case may be, and Dutch rolls 1 evade. Well, 4 hole just became 2 hole, and that's not even including if Lima actually got crits. So if Lima got a crit and, like, say a direct hit came in, or a fuel leak, then a direct hit, I mean, it's just awful. So that could actually kill Dutch altogether at that point in time. So there's also the case of, you may want to actually explore which order that you want to fire at Dutch with, because I just jumped over to Lima because that was there on the screen. Let's actually assume that instead Old T decides to shoot first, or second, I mean. So Old T shoots second, and Old T can roll up to 4 attack die. And let's say that Dutch's defense die decided to go on vacation and roll a blank. Well, that means that the 4 attacks, or the 4 hits or crits, come in, and Dutch is now off the board. So you may want to shoot with Fenn. Well, you have to shoot with Fenn first, shoot with Old T next, because he can't follow up or shoot Wedge at this point in time because Wedge is out of arc. And then if Dutch is dead at that point in time, you have Lima. Lima can still do a range 3 attack at Wedge with 2 attack die and not have wasted that round. So there you go. So now we look at what can Wedge do. So boom. So we got Wedge here. Wedge has marksmanship. Wedge has this crazy thing called proton torpedoes. And what I'm going to show you here is some people got excited for a second probably and be like, oh, this is normal wedge. He can go ahead and like, make them roll one less defense, et cetera, et cetera. No, this is Battle with Yavin wedge, and it's close, but it's not the same. And this ability is not actually going to be triggered this time because, as you read right here, while you perform a primary attack, the attack that I assume that Wedge is going to do here is not going to be a primary. It's going to be proton torpedoes. You may be asking, like, why are we doing proton torpedoes versus primary weapon? Well, take a look at what proton torpedoes do. One, you're rolling one more attack die at range 3 at this point in time. And then, regardless, you get to change one hit to a crit at the end of this. So not to mention you got the target lock, and you also have that crazy thing called the focus right there. So let's go ahead and assume that Wedge gets really lucky and he's able to get all hits and he turns one of those into a crit. Same thing that happened to Dutch. Lima's now 2 shields gone, 2 damage, and that doesn't even include crits. Like, again, let's say that a fuel leak came in and a direct hit came in after that. Well, guess what? That's even more damage off of her hull, and maybe she's sitting with 2 health left, as in 2 hull left at that point in time. So yeah, that's what you got. So Wedge has these options. Apparently I made a mistake. So what do you know? I made a mistake. That's actually supposed to say 1 defense die. So if you will bear with me for a second, let's just go, oops, sorry, wrong one. Let's go ahead and go back here just 1 second and fix that, because guess what? It even happens to me. You have to read the card. So we're back on track now. My apologies. So then we also have the option of, do we go ahead and roll a range 3 attack with just 3 attack dice on over to Fen Rao, who's going to get 4 defense dice? I'm sorry, the numbers just don't add up for me, because even if you get 3 attack, like 3 solid attacks, even 3 solid crits, you're still going to be dealing with 4 defense dice, and let's say that half do their job and evade. Okay, let's say one of the other 2 remaining actually just rolls up a focus. Well, he's going to spend the focus and do that. So there you go. So I don't think shooting at Fen is a viable or feasible option at this point in time. So we're going to go ahead and assume that Wedge here went ahead and shot at Lima, and let's just go ahead and assume that 2 shields and 1 hull came off, because we'll say that Lima's defense die actually did evade, and there you go. So then we go ahead and come on over to Lima. And I did say that maybe it's better for us to go ahead and attack here. So let's go ahead and play out a scenario real quick, a theoretical, if you will. Old T goes ahead and does the range 1 attack, 4 attack dice, 1 defense dice, and he spends his focus and he gets a crit. Let's say that the crit is even Panicked Pilot. And for those of you not familiar with Panicked Pilot, that gives you 2 stress automatic, and that's not good. And I'll show you why that's not good in this scenario. I mean, here's the thing with 2 stress tokens. You're going to be basically without, or you are basically not going to be able to do actions for 2 rounds at that point in time. So now, as I've already said earlier, oh, by the way, let's say that Old T here didn't even have a focus at this point in time. He could go ahead and do the whole what's the word I'm looking for? Clan training at that point in time. If the enemy ship is in your primary arc, which Dutch is, he can go ahead and spend a charge to go ahead and get that red focus. So that's not the case. That's just an option that I want to point out to you. Let's also say that Dutch actually not only had a target lock, that Dutch somehow ended up like with a focus. Maybe Garvin passed it off to her. I don't know. So, or off to him. Who knows? So in which case, at the start of an engagement, Old T is going to go ahead and say bye, and he's going to make you remove all your green tokens. So these are just things that you need to know. Right now, a few of you are just like, the scum is dirty. Yeah, the scum is dirty. That's why they're scum. but a lot of factions have different ships that are always going to be dirty and always have ways to do terrible things to the opposite side. So that's just sometimes the way that the game works. So because also, if you want to think about it, Wedge's ability is pretty nasty. So yes, it's conditional, but it's still nasty if you are like, let's say that he just decided to go ahead and fire his primary weapon at the Y-wing over here. Yeah, it's going to be range 3. Range 3 should have been at 2 defense die, but then it becomes 1 defense die. And there you go. Imagine, if you will, that instead of him being at range 3, he was actually at range 2 when he pulled that off. And that means that he is firing 3 attack die into a Y-wing that is rolling nothing. So, I mean, everybody's dirty in their own way. So it's just a case of which faction do you like and which pilots do you prefer. So, and what is your style of flying and everything else. There's no range 2 option for Wedge, but just so that we're thinking ahead here, Wedge has got to be moving forward in some direction or maybe turn in. So let's go ahead and get old T thinking about what maneuver do I want to make in order to go ahead and either pursue or go face to face with Wedge at that point in time. So that's just something to go ahead and think about. So I think that old T should definitely use or be thinking about Wedge being his next target, probably Fen Rao as well, because let's just be realistic. If all of these 3 ships are on fire and their dice are on fire, Dutch is going to die. And then we got 3 ships that can reposition themselves to go ahead and take on Wedge. And that's just basically what you have to do in order to get focus fire. Now, remember how I said Panic Pilot is a possibility on Dutch here? R4B11, while you perform an attack, it doesn't even have to be a primary. It could be a torpedo attack, special attack, whatever the case may be. So you may remove 1 orange or red token, which a stress is, and you force that defender to re-roll any number of the defense dice at that point in time. I've had this done to me. It is absolutely horrible. And it's not something that you enjoy seeing, but it is something that can actually happen. And yes, that could go ahead and kill Dutch. It actually ended up killing the Whisper that I was, or not the Whisper, the Silencer that I was flying at the time. So in which case, that's just how it sometimes works. So we got the range 2 possibility with the torpedo. We can't shoot the torpedo at Wedge here because, you know, he doesn't, or Lima doesn't have a lock on that one. So there you have it. So also, would you really want to shoot at Wedge while he has the focus versus you got a target lock on Dutch, and Dutch has no focus at this time. So there you go. All right. Let's see here. We have already talked about that. All right, now it's time for let the dice roll. Look, a lot of people like to make assumptions that their dice are always going to be hot or they're going to be average, and that's just not always the case. And I know this personally. For a very long time, I had a lot of difficulty with my dice, and just, you know, on normal play pickup games, then hey, guess what? My dice were working. Come tournament day, it's like they decided to take a vacation, and it was embarrassing. So, but at the same time, you also just got to let go, and you know, you're going to feel betrayed because they were rolling hot for a while, and then you go to roll them again and they go cold real quick, as then they start rolling blanks or they start rolling focus symbols when you have no focus, and it's just absolutely terrible. So you feel betrayed. But the thing is, you just got to assume that dice are, well, you have to know that dice are dice. You got the probability, and I've already shown what side or how many sides have what and everything else. And if sometimes probability is in your favor and sometimes luck is just not your friend. So now assume your defense dice are never going to have your back. That is something that I've learned from a couple of other people, but I've just started to understand, hey, guess what? The defense dice are not going to have my back. If you can hold on to your focus, as in, like, if you go ahead and shoot, one thing that, again, my opinion, my, you know, preference, etc., you are not normally going to see me spend a focus on an attack for just one focus result. you're going to see me hold on to that focus for the defense, because I know that people are coming to shoot back at me. Now, if nobody's got me in their arc and nobody's going to be shooting at me, then oh yeah, I'm going to spend that focus on the attack. But this is where you have to hold on to your modifiers. If you have an evade, or if you take an evade, hold on to it. Use it when you absolutely need it. And I'm also going to tell you that, like, if you think that, what I would tell you with evades versus focus, I always take the focus. There are some ships that, like, for instance, the defender, if you can double up on both the focus and the evade, and you can take juke for your talent, oh yes, go ahead and do that. It's going to be awesome for you as the player, not for the person you're doing that to. So go look that up and see what happens. So make sure you get your locks. If you can actually get a lock and hold on to that, or keep that lock there and then come in with a focus later, it's just, you know, double modifier at that point in time. If you roll poorly the first time, you can go ahead and spend your lock. Hopefully you get some focuses in there, and hopefully you get that focus to go ahead and flip those focus results into hits, and then you're good to go. These are not the only modifiers though. You also have the different cards like Predator. You have marksmanship that can turn hits into crits and all this other stuff. So in which case you got to get your modifiers. The dice can only do so much, and you got to have modifiers to help them do more. So there you have it. So as always, make sure that you get these 3 resources. We have it in the video description so that you can click on them and go to them, etc., etc. Make sure that you bookmark them if you're starting to get into the game, because you will need them. So, and then if you have any questions, send me an email. I love helping people out. That's why I'm doing these video series. And one of these days, I may even ask for you to help me out with a little bit of support. So in which case, there you go. So feel free to send me an email. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching this video. And welcome to our channel. Oh, I forgot. So if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you want to meet up, or you want to get some people to play with, there are plenty of places to go. And normally these places are doing stuff on a weekly basis. So in which case, check out their websites, check out, you may have to go on Facebook for a couple of them. So look them up. You got Order 66 in Plano. That's where you're going to find me every Sunday, sometimes Thursdays, but it just depends on what's going on that week. Then Monday, you can head out to Burleson, or if you're close to Burleson, go ahead and head on over there. There's some great people over there. I've had the pleasure of flying against them and talking with them every time that they do their tournaments, which is every other month. And then Sci-Fi Factory, I haven't been there personally, but some of their people have been at Geek Out before, and they're good people. So there you go. Common Ground, I don't get a lot of chances to head out there at all because of the day of the week that it falls on. But I can tell you that they have some really great players, and go check them out. So again, Order 66 in Plano, and then Reaper up in Denton. So those are the places that are doing this here in the DFW area. Credits to Slides Carnival and Unsplash for everything that you see in these slides. Also thanks to the wiki page that I steal all the cards from. So welcome to our channel. Please subscribe to us. Help us get the word out on getting more subscribers, and tune in for our transmissions. If you're still learning the game, we got a whole playlist dedicated to you called Game Mechanics. If you want to see some of the game mechanics and the strategy in action, check out our Field Reports playlist, because that's where I'm showing round by round and frame by frame of how we are doing these things. And hopefully one of these days we can actually get it to where it's like a live video, and you can possibly throw in questions during the seconds as they go, but we'll see how that goes. So that's just future planning and further down the road. So thank you so much once again. My call sign is BatMando. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe if they're getting into the game. And thank you so much for everything that you are doing.